you follow philosophy nowadays?
I would like to think that I do, because whenever I read a clever quote and stuff, then I feel, yeah, that sounds good. Then I think, okay, I'm a philosopher now, but it's not really. So I don't do any proper study, but I'd like to actually.
Yeah. So, because the thing is, man, like once you really go down the rabbit hole, because like they make some amazing quotes, right? And you'll see like maybe 10 or 20 of them online, but it really doesn't do justice to like explain,
Context.
to show you like what the guy is about,
Mhm.
like what kind of thinking produced that statement.
Right.
And experiences also, like why do they say certain things, like there's this one guy called, I don't know, Kierkegaard, um, just some Danish philosopher who is like, there's this one quote that he says where um, only the individual has true integrity, whereas I can't get the whole quote. Whereas most of society will never know the full truth. They're always just going to be telling each other, copying the same truth that they sort of just buy into without
Like a
checking the details.
collective consciousness type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very much related to the Matrix,
Of course it
like
is. What is not related to the Matrix?
exactly. And it's so true. Like in the Matrix itself, you know that book that the guy that he opens to, like when somebody knocks on his door, knock knock Neo, like he goes and he opens his book and you think it's a book, but it's actually got like CDs
Mm.
and shit in it. The title of it
Sinatra in
is
simulation. I still haven't read it, and it's been 20 odd years. I know it's there somewhere,
I
but I hear
didn't
you.
read it either. I studied it on the University of YouTube, basically.
Well,
And yeah, this is the thing, man. Like this, like that is so definitely it's not a proper study of philosophy, but it's way more like just hearing a 10-minute video of a guy fleshing out a quote. Like where does it come from? How can you apply it to today's society? Can you even? And then you see that you can, and it's the same shit over and over again. Like what people were dealing with thousands of years ago
yeah.
is the same thing thematically that we're doing now. And it's like Socrates is another one of these people who said the unexamined life is not worth living. Have you heard that one?
I've heard that, yes.
Yeah. So like, who has examined their life properly? Like, and like, who's even examined that sentence properly?
Mm.
Because if you examine that sentence properly, then you understand examining your life is, a compulsory thing to do, and it's something that nobody does.
Yeah, there's no
Because
mindfulness involved. It's just a endless cycle, that we
exactly.
get into, and that's where I'm sure, at least partially. I don't know if you ever heard that big inspirational video with Will Smith made a bit of a speech, and he said reading and running. You won't find anything you don't know. There's nothing that you can't find out about from somebody who has experienced it before you and has written a book about it. The running comes
Right,
in,
right,
with your physical optimization and so on. But
right.
you can probably go way deeper into that than maybe even what he intended, but it still makes sense.
Yeah.
Somebody's examined their life before. Maybe he did, and then he discovered, well, it's not really worth whatever the rest of the quote was. You see, I don't even remember the quote.
But yes, so I mean that's bringing up another point altogether, which is another extremely fucking deep thing that you only realize once you go down the philosophical rabbit hole, and that is that if you ask the right questions, number one, what are the right questions to ask, and what are their answers to that? like what history basically shows us is that many different people basically ask the same question because the same things are what we want to know. We always want to know these things. It's fundamental about human nature. Like, how do I be happy? Um, how am I supposed to be? What is the best version of a life? And um, like we are really supposed to be asking all this. And the thing is, like we philosophers are basically people who ended up in the same space. Like, just imagine the world, there's no maps or anything, and people are trying to figure out how to orient themselves around this world. Certain people who are really trying to figure out ways to orient themselves will find out that, oh, there's a magnetic field, and and as long as you hang something made out of metal, like it will point you a direction which is constant. So we don't know what this constant thing is, but at least we can orient ourselves around this. And if we want to follow just where this thing is taking us, and in terms of philosophy, it's the questions. The questions are taking us all actually the same direction. And how you know that you are on the right path is you see other people have been here before and they've done great things getting there, and you just happen to have ended up in the same club as them just because you are built the same, because you are the same kind of animal, basically, to break it down. And so, like, there's this truth, there is a way. Like, how can we all reach the same destination, or more or less there, if there is nothing that's guiding us? Like, there's clearly something going on. And so, like, you have to ask yourself these things for like a long time. And
it's a pity. It's really a pity, because, like, imagine you knew this 15 years ago, 5 years ago, how far along you could have been. Or, well, I suppose the trajectory might be different, but that's something I still wonder,
Yeah, so why is it that none of our societies actually never respect the path, or get like what these philosophers say? Because, like, usually, nobody reads philosophers, and also, yeah, like, do you know why nobody's asking themselves what is the best way to be?
Because it's easier to not. It's always difficult to
Actually,
change direction, or change course. But especially if you sit on doing things your way, and you're stubborn enough,
there we go.
It's going to be very difficult for you. So I think that's part of the reason people don't ask, and it's scary.
Yeah. Yes, it is scary. It is very scary. But the thing is, everybody tells themselves that they're not a bitch, man. So, man, the fuck up.
Well.
And here's the thing. Like, that's it. If you're gonna be like that, then you must be honest with yourself that you are following, and that's better than being set and telling yourself that this is the right path based on just what everybody has told me. Rather admit, this is what everybody has told me, and I'm not sure about it, but I'm following along because everybody else seems to be doing the same thing. So it's like it's
an awareness, of your comfortable lie.
Yeah, exactly. Just make it known what your life is. Don't tell yourself the wrong thing and then make it the right thing because you have told yourself this thing or somebody else has told you. Let it be the right thing because you found it out, and based on objective measurements that anybody can take. Like, I don't have to believe you, just like, this is clearly better because you do 10 push-ups every day. Science has shown that the muscle fibers in your chest or blah, blah, blah. So you don't have to believe me. Just
try it for yourself.
See 1,000 people. Yeah, exactly. So, like, in terms of living your life, nobody knows how to gym. Like, if you want to know how to get a good, a solid structure for how to get it, and it's day in, day out struggling, right? There's no cheating.
Life
You've
is
got to
jujitsu,
go through
man.
that one. So
Life is a
exactly.
struggle.
So, and there's this beautiful, how can I say, parallel between our analog side or our physical side and our mental side or our digital side. You know, like the rules of the analog body are actually the same rules of the mind, but like the analog limits are lower. Like there's only so much muscle mass you can put on, and there's takes a long time to recover. But your mental capacity way higher, much shorter recovery time. So like how fucking epic you can be, how much of a force you can be, just depends on how often you're training this thing. You know, like cutting out the fat and the garbage that you learned as a child, and just using the movements and the ideologies that maximize your gains and minimize the drawbacks or whatever.
Yeah.
So this analogy is a beautiful thing because you can it really scales. It's it's the foundation of my new religion, and we will talk about that very soon, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, tell me about that, because it sounds like Buddhism. Because it said Buddha told his disciples, "You don't have to believe me. This is what I found, and I'm showing you. So you go test for yourself." So
Right.
is that where you are?
So I'm close to there, but I'm a little bit further than Buddha.
Oh my
So
word.
So no. So this is the thing. If I said my new religion, it's not like, number one, it's a religion there's been
quite.
something like that before. Yeah, exactly. And we never actually bring something that's never been done before onto this earth. We're always just making a better version of it, to be honest. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And you would understand this if you understood the yin yang.
Like cycles.
So, right. But I actually want to talk about what a religion is and the five matrices of society.
Okay.
So, So society is a super matrix, and it's made up of five minor matrices. They are like laws, like the legal matrix. That's one. We made up all laws, right? We made up government.
Yeah.
So politics is another one. Economics. We also made up money and all the rules about it. Culture.
Which
and
kind of
finally,
sometimes
religion.
falls in. Okay, cool, got it.
Right. What I want to do on the podcast, what would the purpose be? I've seen a lot of things that normal coloreds will never have thought of or seen in their life before. And they really should know about these things.
What do you mean normal?
Right?
Was a joke. I'm okay.
So actually, it's not just coloreds, but people in the world, for example, not enough people know about, not enough people examine their life and what does that actually mean, and they don't also question the rules that they were taught as a kid. And this is the thing, and so this sets us, and I've lived a life which is unlike everybody else's life, because I'm not everybody else, but very few people like move cities or towns every 2 years and never actually settle down somewhere. So everybody else develops a nice story of who they are, and it's set somewhere. If you even, I think if the average person even contemplates living a life like mine, it's scary. So that's kind of gives me value. I have a kind of understanding that nobody else has, and I can see the limits that nobody else can see. just because they don't want to, because they've set themselves on that story that is based on what the people in their street tell them they should be, what their family has always known them to be, and how they must maintain the fabric of the matrix / delusion that they hold.
Right.
Say what?
Their being, basically.
Yeah. Basically.
Okay.
So yes. So I want to explain how the matrix works and make everybody aware of the rules of their matrix, what's wrong with it, and then how to fix it. So because their matrix is their society, because we actually need a matrix. We want them because without society, we would be living just in the jungle, and we would still be dying with animals eating us, and we would have way more diseases and all the rest of it. We'd be much closer to animals. So by creating society, we create a special sort of world for ourselves where we
like a
minimize
barrier as well.
Right. Or filter. So this is the thing. This is exactly the nature of the problem. Everybody thinks there should be a barrier between the two sides, but yin yang tells us there's flow, and there's also the other side within there's darkness within the light, and but we'll get to that a little bit later.
Sure. It's like an argument for vegetarianism, let's say, for instance. Like if I considered, okay, I shouldn't eat meat anymore, and someone were to say to me, but why? Then I might pose to you the question, look, have you ever seen this cow being slaughtered? Number one. Have you seen the whole process of what this animal needed to go through to get into that shape for your plate? You know, you just think a little bit more. Sure, I'll probably still have a burger later, but just that awareness, I think, helps a lot. You know, so we were almost cut off because we shoved those tasks to the hunters and the farmers and and the butchers and so on. I don't know about it. You know, so I'm totally oblivious to those things. And in that sense, I mean, there's that barrier.
Right. So it's basic. It's a very basic concept that the world is starting to talk about now, called othering. You know, when you put a group or something outside or far away from your group, then you don't need to think about them morally anymore. Right. And this is the problem. This is the problem with society. In this matrix, every one of them has a purpose. So the purpose of law, for example, these are called the first principles. So this is like, it's almost like studying human nature. Like every society, every culture created some form of government, some form of money where you reward the people who've done something for their efforts. There's always rules somewhere, and there's always some sort of guard system.
Yeah.
Do you realize that?
I understood it when I heard Jordan Peterson. Really, he has a way of explaining things that make me think, but that's what I thought. But I can never explain it the way he does, you know?
He
articulates so well.
Exactly.
And he understands it from a human psychological perspective, which is what I really enjoy hearing, you know? I can't understand that for myself, and I can't come to that knowledge for myself because I don't know what exactly to look for. I don't know what questions I'm supposed to ask there.
Right. Because exactly. There's this is the thing. Wow, man, this is like so fundamental. It's like when you are in a room and you see somebody being immoral to another person. For example, let's say somebody's gay and somebody's bashing them about being gay because that goes against the word of God. You know, like there's something wrong in this situation, and we don't know how to articulate what it is that's wrong because
it's almost too visceral.
and also the concepts are really mixed up in our minds. So we don't know what the core rule is and how to test for it. So morality is the core rule, objective morality. So you know the golden rule, like treat people the way you want them to be treated.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So everybody knows this rule, right? And everybody agrees with it. So let's apply it to that situation. Going even deeper. So if you were born gay, would you want somebody to, or you were born a certain way, would you want people to, cuss you out and discriminate against you your entire life because of the way you were born? No. So that's why we have the sense in our conscience. Our conscience is actually our morality detector, going on, it's sending like red flags, but we don't know how to articulate why or address it, to be quite honest. Because why are we stuck in this situation? It's because our culture has chosen Christianity as the moral center, and deep within Christianity is the law that says men sleeping with men or being gay is an abomination, right? It's not natural or whatever, right? So because it's in the Bible, that's why nobody is able to articulate what should be articulated, because it goes against the matrix. You can't question the matrix.
Set of soft laws. So by Christianity and by Bible, you mean basically any set religion and the so-called holy book or authoritative source.
So yeah, something like this. So it's like monarchy as a system of government. So think of it as democracy is government 2.0. The first version of government was despotism, strongman. Next level up was feudalism, which is like groups of strongmen. Next one was monarchy, which is one super strongman. And it's now these three versions were not directed by the people, by society. These three versions had society's best interests like way out there, and so they were stuck. So if somebody said, no, the king doesn't seem like he's caring about us because he's just throwing us into wars and these guys are just stealing our shit, why don't we just change who we have as our leader? They could have done that, but the system didn't allow for that, because if the king doesn't want it, then everybody dies. So when you have this sort of system that you can't change, you cannot adapt it, you're just speaking to a guy who doesn't need to engage with you at all. That it's basically having software that can't update. Yeah. So that's the problem with religion, and Buddhism was the next level. Actually, this one, they took out the god or the king that you cannot argue with, who is perfectly moral, despite the fact that he's lying to us and being objectively immoral by creating gay people and then saying, I hate you at the same time. And
you
then
went very
also
deep very quickly.
But it's true. Well, I mean, this is things that everybody knows about already. Like the Bible condones slavery. So if you lived in a society where the religion which sets your morality, imagine you went to a culture and you saw that they sacrifice babies and virgins in order to make it rain, for example, because they don't know how shit works. You'd realize they would be killing lots of virgins and babies unnecessarily, right? Like not one would have an effect. So nobody would want to live in that society, because like, what, just killing virgins and babies, not cool. What if our religion glorifies a God who, number one, says you shouldn't kill, even though he killed everything on the planet, and also condones slavery,
Those
which
were
is
righteous kills.
no, so like was it? Was it? Think
Well,
about
he said so.
Noah.
He said so.
No, exactly. And the thing is, if any human being with a logical mind, because remember that religion about the babies and the virgin killings, maybe that God said, you must do it, and that's righteous. But any logical, sensible human being would see through that, because just if you measure the outcomes, it's not positive for the society. So why do you call this perfect? Is because you don't know what perfection looks like. I mean, like any objective human being would say slavery is not cool, homophobia is not necessary, it's not loving. But this is why it exists in our societies. Why did the British and the Americans have slaves? Because it was in the Bible, and that was part of their culture, of their societal structure. Like whatever their morality is, and in our case, it has been enslave, do whatever God says, it's fine. Even though it's really not fine. And even though like the Old Testament and the New Testament are contradictory to each other. Like you can't turn the other cheek and take eye for an eye, right? Right? Like
I don't
this
know.
causes.
I'm depending on
It's
your
like saying
expertise now.
it's like saying, okay, so like you ask your daddy, this boy just hit me. What should I do? Hit him back and don't hit him back at the same time.
That's the art of fighting without fighting.
It's
I mean,
called
you
cognitive
saw Enter the
dissonance.
Dragon.
No,
But you're right.
yeah, I saw fighting. I saw Owens' cheeks and eyes the mood.
But those guys
So,
did offend. They offended a Shaolin temple. So you see, he was justified. But I hear what you're saying. It's yeah, exactly what you're saying. They were
right,
so set in because from when they were young, they were conditioned a certain way.
exactly. We are conditioned as Christians. We are conditioned into cognitive dissonance, so that when we see it in the flesh, we can't identify that this is bad for us because this is the norm. Like what? How can you, like, you sit me down next to some Christians, they'll be like, how can you question that turning the cheek and eye for an eye is totally like congruent? It's just not. Like how do you not see that that's not incongruent? It's like how can you not see that the sky is red? What the fuck are you talking about? Like it's that kind of a thing. Like the wheel has gone so far. Most rational, logical humans are no longer logical or rational because they have been trained to just suspend logic and actual, just I don't know, just their humanity in some respects. But also it's because in the church, the priest is only choosing the parts of the Bible that are going to make us happy in this day and age. Back in the day, they used to read from Leviticus and like slay your enemy and cut off the foreskin and exactly. So this is the thing. You can't say that the God of the New Testament and the God of the Old Testament are two different gods, right? Because so what the fuck happened? One God is all about fire and brimstone, and the other God is completely against that. So you don't know what to do. You don't even know if violence is a bad thing.
You have to walk the middle line there. You see, the first one is the yang, and the second one is the yin. So
okay.
But it makes sense what you're saying. I do also think it's very difficult because of the way things are structured. So it's difficult to come up with a not concise, an agreeable, universally agreeable interpretation, because there's so many interpretations.
Well, okay, let me let's flesh out what a perfect world looks like. What does a perfect society look like? Does it have slavery in it? It doesn't work. So you can't have it. That's not perfection on the face of it. Immediately throw that shit out the car. Because like there are thousands of religions. Why choose the one that condones slavery and violence? Because and look at this again.
No, carry on.
Sorry, the golden rule. Let me just the golden rule. If followed, if everybody followed it, you would have a society without violence. Do you agree?
Makes sense. I mean, I think it'll take a couple of steps for certain people to sort of understand why. But I get what you're saying.
Not really. Like nobody wants to be hit. Nobody wants to be attacked without provoking for no reason. Without provoking anybody. Like if you provoke somebody, then yes, you should get what you deserve, of course. And everybody.
Some people are just.
Right, but I mean, the thing is, if it's just chat, if somebody's just talking their beck off and you initiate violence, you were the bad guy, because you could just turn the guy off.
It was your response.
You could be yes, and you shun this motherfucker. If he's bad and nobody wants him in your society is going to take care of it by just not listening to him anymore, and he will feel, oh, at some point I should probably start being a decent person if I want anybody to recognize me.
And I need to take part.
Yes, everybody is a social being, and you must remember that. You can use society and civility as like your stick or your punishment. Like if you, because so I studied evolution, right?
Right.
So I found out that when, like, how do mutations work? You know how mutations work, right? There's like just a mistake in the DNA, and then
again, I'd like to
happens.
think I know, but I don't.
Well, but I mean, like, the DNA strands,
right?
Like if the UV in the sun is too high energy, it might destroy some DNA strands and then change something. So then it creates cancer because the new version isn't so now. So that's usually the case. So you are a computer coder, right? And it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful analogy. It is the same thing. Like the code of your body is the same as like binary code, basically.
Right.
So now, if you change one value in your string of letters, most likely it's going to fuck things up, right?
Correct.
But maybe there is a chance that if just the right position is changed in just the right way by mistake, 1 out of 10,000 or 1 out of 1,000,000, that could make the program better than the programmer himself even designed.
Intended.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. So now, if this is a virus, for example, like there are 1 million viruses that are created, one virus is new. Like, and if that mutation makes that virus better in some way, then the new generation of viruses is going to be mostly this kind of virus. So they will have the new mutation. Many mutations are cuck. So because it is logically better, it is more efficient. It's just a fact. Like it is objectively better in this new structure. That's how mutations work. So like we will have 1,000 mutations and most of them will be wrong, but then once every 100 generations maybe, or not even that many, there'll be a new something, and that new thing will be stronger in some way. So imagine your conscience. Your conscience is something that is built into us, right? And when it gets triggered, it's basically telling you that morality is the moral something here is going wrong. like you have a detector of morality in your mind.
I think it's
And
right.
so, yeah, so this is the thing. It's like IQ, you know, like your brain will sometimes tell you something is right or wrong, and whether you are really right or wrong depends on your IQ.
Yeah.
So MQ is your moral reasoning. So, like, if your moral reasoning is very basic, where like you don't care what the other person thinks, because maybe you don't have that empathy gene in you, for example, then you're gonna be a low MQ person, right? So the problem now is, how do we establish what is really moral? Like, we know what is really intelligent. You can solve problems. So what is really moral? Well, I would say it's, you always bring about well-being, not suffering. The more suffering you bring about, the less moral you are. So, or the lower your MQ, for example. And so you must have a standard of morality. And the golden rule is what creates a perfectly moral individual, because anybody that really believes this will not initiate violence, will not provoke anybody, because why would you want somebody to do that to you? Everybody would just be living nicely. So, and this rule is even in the Christian Bible, but because it has all the other stuff which are completely opposed to this rule, we actually take on bullshit. And because there's the nice looking thing there, we can say, oh yeah, the nice thing is there. There's a whole bunch of shit which goes against it, which we just simply don't know about. We don't read it and we don't think about it. Even when it gets brought up in church or by somebody who is aware, we don't want to hear it. We just don't want to hear it, because it's like an ego thing also, because now not only are you telling me I've made the wrong decision about what I believe is true about everything, you're telling me all the people I love and care about also have done the wrong thing. And unfortunately, that is the case. So, and like, this is why the matrix is really hard to pull people out of. Everybody becomes an agent when you try to tell them the truth. Like, you can't change them. Like, how dare you, and who are you to tell me that like thousands of generations of people were wrong, even though we all know that all the generations who lived before us were wrong. We don't, possible that we could still be doing that today, and we haven't even examined it to know whether that is truly or not the case. But we are very confident, because there's just no way I could have been like everybody else in recorded history. I must be, and my present culture must be different.
I mean, I'm
even though
smart.
none of us are.
I know better, I do no more glare. Okay. No, I hear what you're saying there. It's just like I've always heard it said, there's a certain amount of comfort, especially in religion. It's just that, like what you're saying, people can't accept that with all that's good about what you choose to believe in, there's also a lot of terrible things that have been done. And although you might be able to admit, yes, but we don't do that anymore, or whatever the case is, the fact is there's still people who have these funny thoughts, and they can't quite reconcile. So because, like, I always say, I I don't always say, it's like, once you, like you were speaking about New Testament earlier. So if I consider the New Testament, if I say I'm following Jesus, right, and I'm following his teachings, he said, a new commandment I give to you, love one another. And if that simplifies everything, why is that not enough? You know what I mean?
Because
Is that not enough of a filter? Like Dave, I see you wearing that shirt now. I don't support that team. Am I gonna attack you about it? It doesn't make sense. No, I'm not going to. Firstly, it doesn't affect me. Secondly, it's because there's love. It's it's easy for me to be moral, you know.
Mm.
But okay, I think I might have detracted very slightly from what you're saying.
No,
But
no, no.
it's
It's a very
difficult to escape
common.
that system.
It's a no. It's a very common refrain, and it's a good point. Because I actually, okay. So, as a podcast, I think a good podcast is something where two people actually have different opinions, or
Almost a
like
debate.
gaps in knowledge. Yeah, like complementary gaps in knowledge kind of a thing. So I really appreciate you like presenting the other case can address it properly, because yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot, and you can't just tell people in a religion, hey, that's bullshit, you've got to wake up, because you got, number one, that's just not going to be effective. There's a
No.
way of talking to people. And number two, you also have to acknowledge the good in the Bible, right? And in any religion, because the truth is, okay, it comes back to the purpose of that matrix. What is the purpose? So I said with law, the purpose is the code of conduct, order, security, stability in society, because you don't want people who are acting immorally without any punishment. Because if there's no punishment for immoral behavior, you're going to have a lot of immoral behavior in your society. That
Sorry, guy,
was
you just.
conceived of by your.
I think I might have missed the last minute of what you were saying.
Oh, sorry. Um,
Now, but now I don't remember where you left off because I was looking at the time. But where
the
you were,
first
you said you spoke about law and the reason for it being you don't want immoral behavior.
So there is a purpose. There is an objective purpose for this thing being built, because
Right.
you really do need to have a code of conduct where you punish immoral behavior. Because like even in animal groups, like like one individual who acts against the other individuals must be taken out because he is a threat, right?
Yeah.
So he doesn't care about society, so we must disincentivize that kind of behavior.
Mm.
So we know, so law tells us how not to be. So how should we be? That's what morality teaches you.
Okay.
And you have this textbook, and you go to a school, Sunday school every Sunday, your whole life, and you go through this book, learning teachings for how to be a better human being. And that's admirable. That is a good thing. That's absolutely necessary. But what we haven't done, what we don't do, is really question that textbook. Like, is this truly valid? Because I see some killing going on here, and in our history as a Christian nation, just because we decided today that we're going to focus on this part, which is all about love, doesn't mean we can forget that there is all of this stuff about killing, because it does make our God look bad, because he was bad, and we have to actually acknowledge that. So he was immoral according to our standards in this New Testament. So he acted immoral according to himself, which is cognitively dissonant. So if you are going to follow a religion which is just flawed to anybody that is just anybody who wasn't brainwashed into believing, who wasn't born into Christianity, would look at Christianity and go, what? Are you crazy? Like, just as we look at Scientology, Mormonism, and like Sharia law or whatever, like those societies have those things, and our society has slavery in its history and witch burnings in its history, not because this was after Jesus came. After Jesus came, then there was still burnings and shit like that. Why? Mm-hmm. Because we needed some sort of punishment mechanism, because Jesus actually wasn't a good punitive, like a punishment mechanism designer. So, and you do actually need to have that in your society. So you can't have, so the result that we have in Christian society is we have some people who got on a boat to go and spread the love of God. Half of them took slave chains, half of them were just like love and light and shit, and they were all reading from the same book. Bryn. Like, do you get
There's that interpretation thing.
It's
I
not
think
a,
that's a big problem.
But the thing is, the problem is that it is possible to interpret the exact opposite message, and therefore people do that. That's the problem. It's not the, and the problem isn't the missing, is the interpretation. It is the presence conflicting information which doesn't tell you how to live your life. It tells you two different things, and now you must decide. No, that's not how things work. Also, there are certain rules or themes that come up like a moral of the story. So, for example, Adam and Eve. What tree did they eat? That's so bad. The ultimate sin of all human beings. What tree did they eat from? What is bad there?
A tree of knowledge.
So as a Christian, what is your whole life's orientation towards knowledge supposed to be? Are you supposed to accept knowledge or be very skeptical of it and outright just dismiss it if it contradicts the perfect word of God?
It's a fair question.
You know, right? That is the fact. You've got to just obey the perfect word of God, and you can never update it. It's just, yeah, it's just bad. So yeah, like that's why. But it is important to have a religion. So I'm creating a version of religion which explains where morality comes from. That it is not from a magical being in the sky, because that's just not how shit works. And you can only get better as a human being through technology. And technology can only be developed if a lot of people are very educated or trying to study science, you know. Use a logical, rational thinking process that makes them the best version of a human being. Not some person who follows a story, doesn't look at any other kind of book and just lives their life like an animal, really, because they think they've got the answer. It's set, it's clear, despite all the contradictory information which is hitting them in the face. But they just like, no. And that's what's wrong with us. We need to just see what is clearly there in front of us and then work up from that, you know? So you don't need all this magic. You need science, you know? That is the only thing that has improved life, the quality of life.
I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong as well. You know, a lot of people say, yes, well, this contradicts science and all that type of thing. But science is not really a...
Okay.
It's not a... No. I hear what you're saying. It's just that, to clarify, it's not a thing of science versus Christianity, for instance. Because all science is, well, to me, is it's this is the knowledge we have. These are the tests we have for anything new coming in. It doesn't work. Okay, we can't call it scientific for now. If somebody finds a way to, if you can prove, you know, I'm actually sitting here and speaking, you have a scientific method of doing it, it's repeatable, etc., follows all these metrics, benchmarks, it's now science. You know, that sort of makes sense. So your basic call it conclusion, so to speak, when it comes to science, is that of testing for yourself, having repeatable results. Okay.
Objective, being aligning with objective reality, basically. And so this is a tricky conversation to have because number one, I just want to. I kind of misrepresented myself a little bit. So science isn't the answer to everything because at the moment it doesn't tackle morality because it leaves that to religion. So science at the moment is not all you need. You need a little bit more. So in fact, I would say, and this is where I'm trying to come in. I'm trying to combine morality with science, saying that you you don't
I
have
think
to think
it can
of
be done.
Exactly.
I think it can be done. It's just that the way people can perceive science, it's not all about lab coats and beakers and stuff and pipettes.
Mm.
It's more to me. It's more to do with I see this thing. Can it happen again? Oh, I can test for it. I can reproduce this now. So then that makes it science. You know,
Right.
just like what you were saying when you exercise. So if I do my 10 push-ups today and I do it again tomorrow, it should be slightly easier. Next week it'll be even easier. So
Exactly.
even though that
Yeah.
might not be science, but the act of actually doing that is not the science, but there is science behind it. So I can see that you can marry the two.
Yes, and you can even exactly, and you can say to the person, if I'm going to predict the future for you now, and if the results are not according to what I say, you can speak to me, and then we can talk about it, and then you'll find out what the problem was. Not to say, no, you didn't believe in yourself hard enough, or just something like that. There will be a reason that we can point to.
Always in motion is the future.
And the thing. And unfortunately, there is sort of a conflict between science and religion because, and science is trying to stay away from morality because it's the space of religion, and because how emotional people can be, you can't talk about it there. So the fact that the thing is, why does science actually go against religion? It's because many religions make claims about objective reality, like how the world works. So like the Greek gods and the Roman gods, each one was in charge of some sort of elemental force, like rain or lightning, but there's no dude in the fucking sky flying around.
How do you know, Dave? You've never been there.
I took a plane, motherfucker.
Damn it.
I got binoculars. So what I was saying was,
there's no dude in the sky. I don't believe you, but okay.
So this is the thing, right? When you give the power to these gods, well, why did any culture, they really believed Ra was pushing the fucking the sun across the sky in Egypt, and then his brother would move him for like 12 hours, and then he would be all right, and then so like that's how the world worked, So if you now tell me that science, or if you can tell me that no, there's not just a ball being pushed across the sky, but there is a ball fixed in space and we are actually going around it, like, no, that's not what my book says. So garbage to you. So now there is a conflict, clearly, right?
That makes sense, yes. In that sense, definitely there's a lot.
And this is the thing. So the Bible also has makes a lot of claims, and Christians believe, for example, like the Earth is 6,000 years old, and there's definitely no evolution, and it's just false. Like there's no record of a worldwide flood about 3,000 years ago, and we can also find copies of a story of a worldwide flood that God sent to punish blah 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 in another religion, which was 1,005 years ago. And so whoever wrote that story into the Bible would have thought, like, number one, nobody is going to know about that story because so few people were literate that this story was in another language 1,500 years ago. Nobody thought that it would be found out, but it was. So
it was so epic.
Yeah, the Gilgameshian epic, it. So yeah, and then also like Jesus says, for example, you don't need to wash your hands because that was just a ritual that the Jews did to, it was just a ritual. And I know about bacteriology, microbiology. So I know that you should wash your hands. And if you don't, a lot of people are going to die because there's germs everywhere.
And they
So
didn't have
you tell
fridges those
people,
days. Imagine.
you know? And so, yeah, so if Jesus tells people not to wash their hands, which would have actually saved their lives, that means he's killing people. And objectively speaking, I know more than him about the nature of reality because nobody talked about viruses or bacteria. Like God didn't tell us how to save millions and billions of people. And he didn't even tell anybody, hey, get on a boat, sail west for a couple of days, and then you'll find a whole other planet of people that need saving. Because I don't have time to send another Jesus there. I'm just God. I'm very busy at the moment, you know. So none of this happened. So how could anybody believe this story right now? It's just because we tell it. It's like Santa. It's exactly Santa. And the story of Santa is so amazing. Everybody knows it's possible to fool their own generation. They don't know that they're fooling themselves as well, and enforcing it as well. Holy God, yeah! If you say any of these things to a believer, like they just won't listen. They will just shut down, leave them. It's like, but guy, come on. Yeah,
But you see, this is where I know when we initially spoke about this, I know it's been a long time, but when we initially spoke about this is why I was asking, how would you suggest um you get someone neuroplastic enough, you know, so that they might start thinking just slightly differently. Like, okay, let me suspend this just for the moment. Let me listen to this. Let me take this in and see what's gonna stick here. You know, how would one go about that? Sorry, not to
Yeah,
detract
so
from your original train. It's just
like how to get
it's
somebody who would actually listen to this.
yes, as in how do you change people's minds, basically?
Right. So like I wasn't like this all the time, as you know.
No.
Uh, so so that's what tells me this is possible. Basically, what you need to do is you need to find the people who are independent critical thinkers. And so start with your high IQ people, firstly. But high IQ doesn't mean that they are immune to buying into the bullshit, buying into the matrix. Because, yeah, a lot of intelligent people have done that.
And I think they
But you,
also have, some of them might have huge egos. So, you know,
so this is
how
another.
can you tell me, you know, I question everything. I know more than you. How can you be telling me this? You know what I mean? So
Well,
even there,
yeah,
it
so I
becomes their
can,
religion, you know?
yeah, no, so then I can ask them, like, so do you believe in slavery? Would you like to be a slave? And nobody says yes to that question.
Mm.
So this is the thing. You remind people about these texts in the Bible that which they cannot answer because there is no answer for it, because it is immoral, and they know this. So that's the technique. You go with the things you can't lose at, and then
But
you
the thing
remind.
is, let's say someone is a complete atheist, you
Mm,
know? They happen to have a high IQ as well. They tend to
mm,
be really smart.
mm.
Well, obviously that's what I mean by high IQ, but they
Right.
tend to be really shut down to any suggestion.
Well,
So
that's
it's a tough one to break through.
right. So this is why I'm creating a religion, which is
It's every
built.
time you say it. Anyway, okay, sorry, carry on.
So the devil in my religion is Dorian Gray. So
Okay.
and you are the Neo. Everybody should want to be Neo, right? And everybody is born not in sin. Everybody is born in ignorance.
Right.
and that is a fact, right? And the goal of life in my religion is to accumulate knowledge. You as the logic processor becomes more formidable. Your logic works better the more knowledge you have. The less knowledge you have, the more flawed your logic will be, and the more mistakes you will make, and more time you will waste, and more inefficient you will be. And as you go up in knowledge through this constant sort of cycle where you improve and then you check and then because that's what needs to happen. There needs to be a checking mechanism that stops you from being narcissistic, because once you are narcissistic, you believe you are perfect already. You've attained certain sort of some stature, and that's given you the confidence to now say, I can't be wrong in any other area of my life. And then you stop changing. This is the cancer. This is cancer of human nature and human society, because it's basically what happens on a cultural level with this matrix stuff. You can't question how we built our society. We're the perfect society now. So who are you to tell me? But then when these people go to another culture and then they see, oh, there's doing things differently actually is good in many ways. Yeah, exactly. Then, okay, the narcissism it starts to recede, So I hope it's not a terminal. I hope narcissism isn't a terminal thing, but that's really what's been holding us back. The perfect version of a human is an adapter, a highly adaptable individual, because that's what makes you powerful on this earth. You can fit into any situation. It's the survival of the fittest, and we can fit into anything if we are not narcissistic, which means exactly, maintain an open mind, flow a little bit, that's what it's all about, giving and taking the punches and the blows. So so in my religion, the Dorian Gray is like, he is the perfect figure of what's wrong in today's society. Outwardly, he looks beautiful. He's the perfect model, perfect citizen. He's rich. He's good looking. He's got influence and power. But morally, he's bankrupt, and that's his soul. His morality. He keeps making immoral decisions. And in today's world, where immorality is totally fine, because Jesus said, for example, in the economic sphere, what should we do about money? Just give Caesar what he wants. Like, no talk about the morality of how to operate in the economic sphere, so we don't operate morally there. And so in school, you're taught to be a moral individual, but then in your workplace, you're taught to stab in the back and just make a sale, lie if you need to. It's all about the money. It's fuck your story and your rules and your character, and your friends or whatever, your family, so it's all about money. How can you bring morality into the economic sphere? Are you insane? And that's why economic activity is so immoral, because that's just how we've trained ourselves to be. So this is the danger, the danger is, it's clear to everybody, morality, it needs to be at the front of it needs to be everywhere. Our legal system, apartheid was not according to nature and not objectively moral. Government as well. So our cultures need to change. This is the thing. The thing about me is that I can change the most, and being colored helps that a lot. Because if I was a white man, there's a clear mold for a white man to fall into. If I was a black man, same thing. As a colored, we don't have much of a cultural heritage, because as a culture, we were just created out of nothing, 60 years ago or whatever. So
I
we are
think that's, sorry, I think that's also why a lot of guys have a problem with how colored people are portrayed in ads and so on. It's with the missing teeth, or it's with the heavy accent and all that type of thing. I mean, it's totally unnecessary. I don't sound like that.
Right,
Uh,
right, right.
why, first of all, do I assume that he is a colored man? But if he is, why is he speaking like that? Why can't he just speak normal
Right,
English?
right. I believe we should be speaking English. It's only logical for us to choose English as our language. But many coloreds want to say that Afrikaans is the language of our culture. Like, don't you like that's one of the most ignorant things I think we say, and it's very common to say. Number one, would you agree that most colored people believe that Afrikaans is the language we're supposed to speak?
I don't know if that's what they believe or if that's just what's been happening.
I mean, because I get called out for not being able to speak Afrikaans, but just the expectation that I should be good at Afrikaans is an absurd one, and it tells you that people do have these assumptions.
You 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 haven't you haven't changed your surname to Potter yet, so I must.
Because there's power. There's power in my surname, Bryn.
You see,
What-
was that Afrikaans, that emotion, that
because
description comes through.
What what does me being a brown man with a surname Potgieter tell you about me and my history?
The fact that somewhere in your family you made pots.
Yo,
Hey.
it means I'm a slave child, okay?
Okay.
So, which means that I am in between the two worlds, I can see both sides, that's really who I am. Like, it's like what my life experience has made me. And it's sort of like from the cradle. Like, my name is Dave. My mother chose the name Dave, not David, because David can be turned into Afrikaans, David. And she really didn't want anybody calling me Afrikaans names. So, like, my name is the most cognitively dissonant thing ever. Like,
David.
incompatible with Afrikaans, incompatible with English. Like, wow. I must
Okay.
be confused.
Okay, that fits now.
Everything is making sense. What else? Oh yeah. So the thing is, if it was our oppressors that trained us to speak this language because it made them feel more comfortable, and it really did, and we stick by this language, are we not sort of just, I don't know, making them very happy by letting them think that it worked, the indoctrination worked, and we are now their kind of people, when we should be really learning the language that allows us to operate globally. We should be learning languages which are equally expressive and descriptive and all the rest of it, but much more useful. Like just why learn Afrikaans so that you can speak to Dutch? Oh, well, okay. Actually, when I went to Holland, that was the one time that I appreciated knowing Afrikaans.
Exactly.
So we should learn Afrikaans so that we can immigrate to Holland for sure.
It's just that it is a tricky one, because I mean, even English, I mean,
no.
Why should we be appeasing British, that type of thing?
Great question. No, I have an answer. It's because we shouldn't be doing this for moral reasons, because it's the same case. However, for practical reasons, they just did the best job of spreading the language. And in order for humans to be able to work at the most, like for all global society to function most efficiently, every single person needs to be able to communicate.
Have a Babel fish.
Yeah, no, Babel fish, because the Tower of Babel is where God wanted people to not communicate anymore, so he made them speak different languages. What a nice guy. He didn't want us to reach heaven with his tower.
I didn't hear Jordan Peterson's expression of that story yet, so I can't even comment. just seems so short and like I don't understand why yet. But anyway,
You know the story of the Tower of Babel, right?
I know the story, but why is it there? I don't get
Why?
it.
Teaching about like how like you mustn't try and be clever because people were being clever trying to build a tower to heaven so that they could get there, but God was like, no, this could really work because heaven really is just like a few floors up above
Yeah,
the earth or
but then
something.
where does it end? They all go to the separate parts and they can't talk to each other. That's it.
Yeah,
What was
exactly.
the point?
To stop them
Doesn't
from
make
building
sense.
just
Building a
to stop them
tower.
from that's what I'm saying, man. Like saying it doesn't make sense, but people just bought it again because like he's so powerful. Look what he did to the people. He'll do it to you too. So you better call him the most merciful, loving God ever. You know, like that doesn't make sense, guys. Makes sense. Don't speak the language of your oppressor. Speak the language that allows you to raise go up the highest in society, opens the most doors for you. Unfortunately, it's English because that's just how languages spread back in the day. Maybe in the future it'll spread through my religion.
We speak
Something like
Divinian.
that. Wow, dude, that's a cool language name, actually.
Well,
Divinian.
I don't know how we're gonna start. But anyway. But I hear you.
I can tell you how.
All communication I understand needs to be functional. You know, like this now, well, not face to face, but interface is serving our
Right.
purpose at the moment. I can see what you're doing, sort of, and you know, so it needs to have a function.
Yeah, because like the university of YouTube is only in English. You know,
If you look for enough tech videos, you'll see others.
No. So this is the thing. In terms of the most broad, of course, if you focus on one particular thing, yeah, there's some language. But if you want to know everything, you got to know English. So it's just a practical consideration. That's why we should learn English, not Afrikaans.
Understood.
Yeah, so that's one thing. We tell ourselves as a culture that we must learn Afrikaans. We are not a culture, number one. Number two.
And there's nothing wrong with that either. I think
exactly
people get offended very quickly, thinking, "Oh, how can you be so upset to say something like that?" It's not really a thing for you. You know
what culture means. They don't. Okay, so what is the purpose of culture? What would you say? So yeah, I've given you the breakdown of the first principles of the other three matrices. What do you think?
Look, I think the purpose of culture is, to me, like a society. It's supposed to bind you as a society. Like, oh, we do these things. On a Sunday, we'll have roast potatoes, and we'll have the leftovers for supper. You know, that sort of part of it. And if you don't do that, I personally don't think it's such a big problem. So I understand its purpose, but if it's not there, is it really so bad? Is it hurting you or anyone else? If not, then don't worry about it.
So let me tell you what I think the basic purpose of the culture is. So the law tells us what not to do, what we cannot do. Morality tells us what we have to do at the deepest level. Like the morality is the core of everything. That's the bottom line. The culture is what you got to do, not at the deep level, at the superficial level, on the day-to-day thing. Like how do you greet other members of your society? Because the culture of your society determines the warmth, the happiness, you know, the trust, the respect, and that. So your culture is partly the number of repetitive gestures like handshakes and hugs, and then it's also the next level is who you go to and when you go there and how do you interact with them. Do you talk to each other? Do you sometimes even argue? And if you argue, are you arguing aggressively or are you arguing constructively?
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's also part of your culture. You know, are you do you have an aggressive culture, or it's, you know, the flavor of your day-to-day social interaction.
Okay.
So yeah, so I believe any person, like with the philosophers, you will come to, if you ask yourself, what is the right way to be in my daily life to maximize my integration into society and my reception, like my, how popular I am. If I really want to maximize my popularity and all the rest of it, what do I need to do? I believe if everybody asks themselves that question, they will sort of get to the same space. Everybody will embrace somebody, acknowledge them in some way, maybe try to send some good vibes across the pavement or whatever. Like everybody will come to more or less the same sort of way to be. So like with the religion, I believe that everybody, if once they know morality is just in your conscience, and you can just do a simple calculation, like, would I want somebody to do this to me? Like, you are becoming objective, like when you do that. Anyway, so put it all together.
You were saying everybody should want to be the Neo in their story. So they should want to progress in society.
Everybody tells themselves that already, right? So here's the test now. This is it. Like I can't believe that I could create this in my life, but like it's full circle. Do you remember the days in Clary Park? Do you know how many times I watched The Matrix in the cinema?
I'm sure once I went with you. One of the times I saw it. But I mean
7 times.
But that's the thing. I think I saw it 5 times. But now when I go back and think about it, it feels that it was more to do with the Kung Fu than than any of the philosophy.
Okay. For me, it was the other way around. It was like, holy shit. The
But you
idea
see,
that everybody...
that poked, but I think because I didn't have enough, like you were saying, your life experience basically would have probably helped a lot there. So mine is like, okay, I needed to think a bit more, but I also needed to do some other things, and then it would fit in, then I would see, okay, this is just a metaphor for A, B, and C, and the other one, eventually it would fit together.
I think it really is the fact that I would change, and I would see the same rules being broken. Like the popular people were usually not the most intelligent people. They were just the ones who had the most confidence. And the whole classroom, for example, would be bamboozled by the confidence. And I would be like, yeah, this is just like the last time. Why does this keep happening? And then so it's like there is something wrong with the way people are thinking. And I hadn't articulated it like that back in those days, but I could feel something, like
a splinter in your mind.
Exactly. That scene, when I watched it, oh my God, 20 years later, it's like,
but even
do that now. I can
even that revelation for me comes up every now and then, well, regularly. And I think something is not right, something is wrong. You've known it, but
And I can articulate it now. I can really articulate why, like when you look outside your window, it's the matrix. Why, when you go to church, you go to work, you go, like your economic matrix, your religious matrix, your cultural matrix, your government, when you pay your taxes, they're all, each one is a fucking matrix. And he only says you can't smell or taste or touch them, but you can see them and you can hear them. That's how they get stuck into you, but they're not real. That's why you can't smell or taste or touch them. That, it's like, holy shit. Like, they were telling us the whole time, and now I can articulate it clearly. Like, why is it wrong? Why is economics wrong? Why is business wrong? It's because we are trained not to think about morality in that sphere, and when we stop thinking like that, we can still do business. We can just do it much better, for example. So, maybe on our next talk, we should talk about the the new system of economics. So I fixed the economic matrix. So you know how we went from monarchy to democracy?
Right.
That was a Moore's shift in the government matrix. Now we are supposed to have done the same thing in the economic matrix.
Right.
And I know how to do that. Like I can solve. Like next time we can if we like create another hour or something, maybe Friday, then yeah, we can create another episode for the viewers.
So today we just basically got from this that you are starting a religion and that you are still alive, so it's not really a religion, it's actually a cult.
Yeah, the cult of objective morality and science.
Okay, nice. Yeah, okay. I forgot to stop recording.